Okay, please subscribe to DBS Talks. Now let's get into our topic. In the previous class we have discussed about the transaction flow techniques and what are the inspections or reviews and walkthroughs that we are going to perform during the transaction flow techniques, and about the path selection, path sensitization and path instrumentation, and how the data flow testing is going to perform there, how a data flow testing is going to perform. Up to here we have discussed in the previous class. See, now let us see what is MIMD architecture. Okay, the term MIMD refers to multi instruction and multi data machines. Here, why these machines are used is these machines are used to fetch the several instructions and objects in parallel. Parallelly, you are going to fetch the several instructions, and they can do the both arithmetic and logical operations simultaneously. On different data objects, it is going to perform the arithmetic and logical operations. Here the decision will be taken on the here how we are going to take the decision is it is only depending upon the compiler. See, based of what is a multi instruction multi data machine architecture is, whenever you are going to taking the multiple data, here from that you are having some multiple instructions there. We have to perform the operations of that instructions also. So how we are going to perform the multiple instructions at a time by using this architecture. uh, Here we are going to take the machines, the multi instruction and multiple data machines. These machines at basically these machines initially take the several instructions, and it will fetch the several instructions and obviously objects in the parallel. So automatically it will be both arithmetic and logical operations will be done simultaneously on different data objects. Both arithmetic and logical operations are performed, and the decision of how to sequence them is how we are going to sequence means we are placing it in the order. Okay, that is which instruction that we have to take first, and which instruction that we have to take next, and what are the instruction that we are going to take will be depend upon the compiler. Basically the task of the compiler is to place the instructions in the sequential order. Based on that sequence itself, it is going to process that instruction, whether that instruction may be a whether that instruction may be a logical instruction or arithmetic instruction or whatever it is. Based upon that instruction itself, it is going to process that particular data. And these machines basically these machines can fetch the several instructions and objects in parallel, so that they can do the arithmetic and logical operations simultaneously on the different data objects. Here the decision that how to sequence the decisions is basically depends upon the compiler. Okay, see how we are going to assume that particular bug. Here the bug assumption for the flow testing strategies is that a control flow is generally correct and something has gone wrong with the software, so that the data objects are not available when they should be. See, if you are going to assume the bug that at particular place you are having that bug, but for a data whenever you are performing the data flow testing strategies, it is we have to control that flow, and it is generally a correct procedure that first of all you have to control the flow whenever the data transaction flow is occurring there. There if you are having the doubt that if it is having some bug, what the task you have to do is the basically what it has to do is it has to do this control flow technique, and it is generally correct that something has gone wrong. First of all you have to stop the control flow. And some bug assumption for the data flow testing strategies is that we have to stop the control flow, and it is generally correct, and that something has gone wrong with the software, so that the data objects are simultaneously not available when they should be silly, or things some things are being going to done by the data objects. See, suppose if you are going to assume a bug, so the data flow, suppose in that particular data flow testing strategy, we have to control that flow. uh, the in the testing process we are having some flow is simultaneously we are having the flow. Basically, first of all, to exempt the bug we have to stop that control flow, and after that we are stopping that control flow, then it is generally correct, and that something has gone wrong with that software, so that the data objects, only the data objects are not available when they should be silly things are being done to the data objects here, so that the data objects are not available. These are not available. We have to say that it should not be available when they should be, or silly things are being done to the data objects. But something, if something has gone wrong, then with that software we have to with that software we have to do that data objects are not available when they should be a silly things are being done to the data objects. Suppose if it is something gone with that particular software, but we need not to show any proof that it has not done perfectly or like that, so that the data objects are not available. If the data objects is not available, then it is then for that's based upon that software we have to do that. It is not so that the data objects are not available when they should be some silly things are being done there to the data objects. Also if there is having some control flow problem, we have to expect if to have some symptoms that can be detected by the data flow analysis. See, if you are having some symptoms based upon the data flow analysis itself, we are going to take the task very easily and effectively. But in order to do that bug assumption, also if there is any control flow problem, we expect it to have symptoms that can be detected by the data flow analysis there. But although we will be doing data flow testing, we won't using the data flow graphs as such. The rather we have to use the ordinary control flow graphs annotated to show that what happens to the data objects of interest to that moment, such that we need not to accept all these things. We won't using the data flow graphs as such, rather we will use an ordinary control flow graphs. Here that is not the task of that whether it is a control flow graph or data flow graph, but whatever we expect it have some symptoms that can be detected by the data flow, it should be detected by the data flow analysis. But if there is any problem, first of all you have to expect it should have some symptoms, and that can be detected by the data flow analysis. Although we will be doing data flow testing, we are not using first of all you have to see that whether you are using the data flow graphs as such, rather or we are using the data flow graphs or ordinary flow graphs. First of all you have to check uh, while doing the bug assumption. These two also are the basic things that we are using, whether we are using the data flow graphs, whether we are using the data flow graphs or we are using the control flow graphs. If it is we are using ordinary control flow graphs, it is annotated to show that what happens to the data objects of interest at that particular moment. What is the data objects of interest is happening at that particular moment there. And rather we are using an ordinary control flow graphs, but we are well doing the testing, we won't be using the data flow graphs as such, rather we will use an ordinary control flow graph to show that what happens to the data objects of interest at that moment. This is how we are going to assume the bug here. But the bug assumption for the data flow testing strategies is the control flow, and it is generally gone something wrong with the software. so that the data objects will not be available when there should be a silly or things being done to the data objects. But also if there is a control flow problem, if you are having any control flow problem, then we can expect if it having some symptoms, that then it can be detected by the data flow analysis. But although it will be doing the data flow testing, we won't be using the data flow graphs as such. Rather we will use an ordinary control flow graph, and it is annotated by to show that what happens to the data objects at that particular moment. See, this is how we are going to construct a data flow graph. See, this is the left part, and this is the data, and this is a see the the data flow graph. It consists of nodes and directed links. Okay, this is CSL. Here we are going to perform the cos CLs. That is some logical operation. Cos, you have already know that we are having in mathematics, we are having some sine, cos, tan, cot, cos. We are having some symbols, no, for that. Here we are having here we are performing this logical operation called cos L. Okay, here we are performing the logical operation cot L. See, this is controls CSI, and here it is a CTL, and this is sin L. From this we are going to perform that CSC means CTL plus SNT. CTL means this one, SNT means this one. That is from this path to this path, and this path to this path. It has to take the control. It has to, first of all, to perform this logical operation, it has to go back, and it has to access the result of this particular thing, and it has to place the result here, and again it has to go back there, and it has to access the result of that particular thing, and it has to come here, and from that it is going to perform this arithmetic operation. Just like that, we are going to perform the inverse operation, and multiplication operation, and subtraction operation, whatever the mathematical operations we are going to perform there. First of all, if it is a sine operation, if it is sine 0, it will become automatically 0. Just like that, if first of all, to perform the logical operations, our function should know about the logical operation, so you have to implement that logical operations in our module, such that it can perform the logical operations perfectly. First of all, from that node L, it is automatically directed to the link CSL. In that CSL, it is going to perform some logical operation, and there from CSL to CTL, it is going to perform another operation, and CTL to SNL, it is going to perform the sin L operation, and in this particular D node, it is directly performing that TNM operation, that is CTL into CST. In the T, we are going to perform the SNT operation. SNT is sin T, and in this CST, we are going to perform the some logical operation, that is cos T, and in TNT, we are going to perform the tan T operation, and in the CSC, if we are having some CSL plus SNT operation, and after that we are going to perform this TNM operation. In this TNM, you have to take the value of CTL, and where is where you are having that CTL in the left node, middle one, it is CTL, you have to take that one, and CST in the T node, you have to take for that one, and you have to perform the multiplication operation between the CTL and CST. And next one, TZF, in the TZF, you have to take the value of S and L. Where is S and L? You are having in the left node, you are having some S and L, and in this node you are having some T and T. There, what the operation that you have performed there, tan T operation you have performed there. S and L into T and T you have performed. Next, from that CSC, we are coming to down. We are having the module C, that we are performing some cos inverse operation of the cos function, and there, from there, if we go for the if we go for the module M, then we are going to perform the inverse operation of the tan, and again we are going to perform here the inverse operation of tan inverse of TZF. For the TZF you will get some result, no? For the TZF you will get some result, no? After taking that result, we are considering this one. After that we are going to perform this inverse operation. After that, that is SNC you are having the sin C operation there, and MPD you are going to perform the M plus D operation. From that you are having this TMD operation, that is tan of MPD, and next one SMD operation there, then sin of MPD operation, and TNF. In this TNF we are going to perform CSC and TMD, that is we are going to perform the multiplication operation there. Then here SMC is SNC into SMD. Then if you are in this module F, if it is having if you are showing some tan inverse, that is we are going to perform the inverse operation, that is we are going to perform the inverse operation. We are going to perform the inverse operation of the tan. And again see, if we are going to perform that inverse operation, that is it is a reverse operation of that particular data flow graph. And here if it is Z inverse or Z, again it is going to perform that ZPF minus F, that is it is going to perform the minus, that is subtraction operation there. Whatever the operation here we are going to perform, that is we are going to perform some logical operations. It is a mixed combination of logical operations, and here definitely these are the basic things. That this is a small example that how we are going to draw the data flow graph, and it is if you observe, it is a combination of all the logical operations, and how we are going to implement that logical operations there. This is the example of the data flow graph. See how we are going to that implement the data object state, and how we are going to use it. What is the, first of all, you have already done what is the data object state. The data object state can be created, killed, and used. Okay, it may be created, and after this task has finished, at the time we left, we can say it is killed. Whenever you are going to use that, we can say it is used. Okay, then from this we can say that the data object can be created or killed or used. Okay, it can be used in two distinct ways. One is in calculation and as a part of the control flow predicate. Okay, how we are going to use it, we going to use it in the two distinct ways. One is in calculation, and next one is as a part of the control flow predicate. Control flow predicate means you have to guess something, that we are having some predicate, logical predicates, and all that. Now let us see how we are going to implement it. See, the following are the symbols used to denote these possibilities. See, if it is if we are having some possibility, then the following is a symbol for that. First one is, if it is defined, we are going to use the uh, symbol D. And we can say if the data object is defined or created or initialized. Whenever you are going to initialize a data object, we can say it is defined, and we can also say it is created. Okay, we can also say it is created. So from this we can say that it can be either defined or created, or it can be defined or created or initialized. And if it is we can say if it is initialized, wherever the process it is beginning there, we can say it is defined. So we are going to call with the symbol D. Okay, if it is skilled or undefined, we are if you whenever you are not defining that particular data object, we can say it is skilled. Or if you are released that data object, or if we are not using the data object, and if we are not defining the data objects undefined, if it is undefined or released, or we can say it as a killed, so it is represented by using the symbol k. Okay, now let us see how we are going to use that. If we are using that, using in some calculations or in some predicates, logical, we are having some logical predicates now. Whenever you are going to use that in some predicates, then we are going to use it with the symbol u. See, if it is defined, if it is defined, or if it is defined or created or initialized, then it is going to use with the symbol d. And if it is killed or undefined or released, then we are going to implement with the symbol k. Then if it is used for something, just like, if it is used for some calculations or just like that, then it is used with the symbol u. Okay, for defining we are using the symbol d, for killing you are using the symbol k, and for usage you are using the symbol u. Okay, now let us see how we are going to define an object. Okay, an object is, first of all, we are going to define it very explicitly when it appears on the data declaration. Whenever you are going to declare the data, then automatically it explicitly it is defined. Okay, automatically the object is explicitly defined. We have already seen in the some object oriented languages, whenever you have defined the data explicitly, the object for particular data is automatically defined. Then implicitly, when it appears on the left hand side of the assignment, when it will be as implicitly appears, implicit ga manaki eppudu appear avutundi ante when it will be appeared, it will be appeared implicitly on the left hand side of the assignment. Suppose if you have defined that the data as a, and if you have assigned some value to that particular data, then we can say it is assigned a value, it is going to assign some value. Then by using that, we can say it is implicitly appeared on the data declaration, or on the left hand side of the assignment. And it is also used to mean that it is also automatically used that a file has been opened or not, whether a file has been opened or not. A dynamically allocated object, dynamically allocated or statically allocated means, dynamically allocated memory means automatically it will be allocated. Statically means we have separately we are going to allocate the memory. We have already seen in some programming languages there. But if it is a dynamically allocated object, then it will be automatically allocated to for that particular thing, something, and it will be something pushed into the stack. See, if an object is if something, we can say that if it is object is defined explicitly when it appears on the data declaration, or it is implicitly when it appears on the left hand side of the assignment. Okay, and see, if it is going to define implicitly, when it is implicitly defined, it appears on the left hand side of the assignment. Okay, and see, if it is also used to mean that the file has been opened. If the file has been opened, it is automatically used to mean that. And here the dynamically actually the dynamically allocated object is always allocated repeatedly, it will be allocated. And we need not to check that whether it is allocated or not. Definitely it will be automatically allocated, and and it will be something pushed into that particular stack there. Here this is in this session we have seen that how we are going to use the data object, and how we are going to define that data object. We can say whether it is a defined or created or initialized, or if it is defined or created or initialized. If it is defined or created or initialized, then we are going to use with the symbol d. Then if it is killed or undefined, then we are killed or undefined or released, then we are going to represent with the symbol k. Then if we are going to use the particular for something for the calculations, then we are going to use with the symbol u. That use for uses we are going to use for the calculations and in the predicates. Okay. And if it is defined, an object is defined explicitly when it appears on the when it appears in the data declaration. Whenever you are going to declare the data, when it is the object is defined explicitly or implicitly when it appears on the left hand side of the assignment. Whenever you are going to assign the data object, it appears implicitly. And next one is, it also be used to mean that a file has been opened. If a file has been opened, it is also used to mean that the file has been opened. The dynamically allocated object has been allocated, automatically it will be something pushed into that particular stack. This is how we are going to define a data object. Now let us see how we are going to kill that particular data object. See, whenever an object is killed or undefined, suppose or it is released or otherwise it is we are making that one is unavailable, we can say that one is that the object is killed. How we are going to represent it with? It is going to represent with the symbol k. And when its contents are no longer known with the certitude, suppose if the contents is no longer, and if it is having some certitude with the absolutely certain, or if it is not a perfect thing, based upon the perfectness also, we can say that that particular data object is killed. How we can say? When the contents are no longer known with the certitude, with absolutely certainly on the perfectness. Here we can release the dynamically allocated objects back to the availability pool. How we are going to create the dynamically created allocated objects? It will be back to the allocated pool. Then we will continuously return the records continuously, and there the release of the dynamically allocated objects also, it should be back to the availability pool, and definitely we will return to the records the whole top of the stack after it is popped. See, we have already pushed into the stack. Whenever you are going to use that particular data, we have excuse me we have pushed that one into the uh, pushed the data object into the stack. But if it is not reused, and if we can say that it is not certainly particular thing and it is not having any perfectness, we can say that we definitely we will pop out from the stack. That is, we are going to kill the data object. Okay. And we will return to the records. What are the whole top of the stack? Basically we are going to stack, we have already know the last in first out concept there, at what the last placed object is first removed first, so that here the here first whatever the first removed object is, what is the last placed object, then it will be removed first. After that we have to check what is the next next data object in the top of the stack, and we have to check whether it is not reusing perfectly and it is not undefined, and that then definitely we can pop it out from the stack. Next, the assignment statement also will kill and redefine it immediately. For example, if a had been previously defined, suppose we have done an assignment such as a is equal to 17, we have killed the previous value. That is, if we have previously assigned the a value to 10, again we have assigned the a value to 17, automatically the 10 will be overwritten by 17. That is, that the value of 10 is killed. That is, we can say that previous value, the previous value of a is killed. That is, the previous value of a is going to replace with the new value of a. Understand? By using the assignment statement also we can kill and redefine immediately. That is also, that is we are saying, if you are taking an example, like if you have defined some a value to, previously we have defined some a value to 10, and again we are redefining it to a value as 17, and we have killed such that the 10 value is replaced by 17, such that we can say that the value of 10 is replaced by the value 17, such that that value 10 is automatically killed there. Okay, this is the concept of killing. And next, see how we are going to use the particular data object there. The variable used for computation when it appears on the right hand side of the assignment statement. See, whenever it is going to place it on the right hand side of the assignment means that is equal to statement. Now we are having it is assigned to that particular statement, we can say that the data is used there. And next one, the file is read or written. The file record is either read or written. That is, we are going to use that file record which is read, or which is in the read mode or write mode. Then if it is a predicate, if it is where you are going to use it, it is going to use it in a predicate when it appears directly on the predicate. Okay, we'll continue in the next class.